Topan never had a normal life. From the very beginning, his existence was anything but ordinary. Raised in the opulent cage of his adoptive father's criminal empire, normalcy was a distant dream. The mansion, with its high gates and luxurious facade, was more of a prison than a home. His father, a man known only as the boss, ruled his domain with an iron fist. His presence was intimidating, his authority unquestionable. The boss's empire was built on a foundation of fear and illicit activities. Dark alleyways and run-down warehouses were the true heart of his operations. Counterfeiting, arms dealing, smuggling, these were the tools of his trade. Each illegal venture added another layer to the empire's dark legacy. Topan grew up surrounded by the trappings of wealth, but it was a gilded cage. The expensive cars and luxurious gardens were mere distractions from the reality of his life. He yearned for a life free from the stench of corruption that clung to his father's empire. The weight of his father's expectations was a constant burden. The lavish parties, with their forced smiles and whispered deals, filled him with a deep unease. He felt like an outsider in his own world, surrounded by people who only saw him as the boss's heir. He longed for something more, something real. The simple pleasures of life, like watching a sunset or hiking in the mountains, seemed like distant dreams. The weight of his father's legacy pressed down on him. Every decision, every move he made was scrutinized and judged. The boss had plans for Topan, plans that involved inheriting the empire and expanding its reach. He was expected to follow in his father's footsteps, to continue the legacy of power and control. But Topan harbored a secret. He wanted no part in this life. He dreamed of a different path, one where he could be free from the shadows of his father's empire. He dreamed of escaping the suffocating grasp of his father's world and starting anew. The thought of running away, of finding his own way, was a constant in his mind. Topan's days were a strange dichotomy of luxury and dread. He'd wake up in silk sheets, the sun glinting off the expensive art on the walls, yet a knot of anxiety would tighten in his stomach. Every day felt like walking a tightrope, balancing his desire for freedom with the fear of his father's wrath. He found solace in small acts of rebellion. He'd spend hours in the mansion's library, immersing himself in worlds far removed from his own. He devoured tales of ordinary people living ordinary lives, their simplicity a stark contrast to his own chaotic existence. The library became his sanctuary, a place where he could escape the watchful eyes of his father's men. He knew his rebellion was a dangerous game, but the yearning for freedom burned too brightly to ignore. He started making plans, whispering them into the silence of the night, hoping that one day he could break free from the gilded chains that bound him. The boss, blind to his son's internal struggle, was busy solidifying his empire. He was a man of ambition, driven by power and control, and he saw his son as a mere pawn in his grand scheme. He announced an arranged marriage between Topan and El, the daughter of his most trusted associate. This union was not about love or companionship. It was a calculated move to merge their empires and cement their power. Topan was devastated. The union was a strategic move meant to merge their empires and cement their power. He felt trapped, suffocated by the weight of expectations and the loss of his own dreams. He had always viewed Elle as a sister, their bond forged in the shared experience of growing up in the shadow of their father's sins. They had shared secrets, dreams, and fears, never imagining that one day they would be forced into a marriage neither of them wanted. The thought of marrying her, of being bound to this life forever, was unbearable. He felt a deep sense of betrayal, not just by his father, but by the very life he had been born into. He knew he had to act, and fast. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became that he couldn't go through with the marriage. He had to find a way out, to carve his own path. He confronted his father, his voice shaking with a mixture of fear and determination. It was the hardest conversation he had ever had, but he knew it was necessary. He pleaded for his freedom, arguing that he wasn't cut out for this life. He spoke from the heart, hoping to reach the man behind the title of the boss. The boss, accustomed to obedience, scoffed at his son's pleas. He saw Topan's reluctance as weakness, a flaw that needed to be ironed out. He saw Topan's reluctance as weakness, a flaw that needed to be ironed out. To him, there was no room for personal desires in the world of power and control. The confrontation ended in a stalemate, but it solidified Topan's resolve. He knew he couldn't stay and be a part of this life any longer. He had to escape, even if it meant defying the most dangerous man he knew. The risk was immense, but the thought of freedom was worth it. The night of the arranged engagement party arrived, a grand affair teeming with the city's elite and underworld figures. The mansion buzzed with activity, oblivious to the storm brewing within its walls. Topan had made his decision. He would use the cover of the party to slip away unnoticed. The opulence and grandeur of the event provided the perfect distraction. As the orchestra played and champagne flowed, Topan quietly made his way to a side exit. He had packed a small bag with essentials, including a few cherished possessions that he couldn't bear to leave behind. The weight of his decision pressed heavily on him, but he knew this was his only chance. He stepped out into the cool night air, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The night was still, almost serene, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside him. Every step he took away from the mansion felt like a step towards freedom. He was free. But his freedom was short-lived. The boss, realizing his son's betrayal, unleashed his men. The once peaceful night was now filled with shouts and the sound of heavy footsteps. The night erupted in chaos as Topan sprinted through the manicured gardens, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind him. The beautifully maintained paths and hedges now seemed like obstacles in his desperate bid for freedom. He had a head start, but he knew they would stop at nothing to bring him back. The determination in their eyes was unmistakable, and the distance between them was closing fast. He had to vanish, disappear into the labyrinthine streets of the city. His life depended on it. The city's maze-like alleys and bustling crowds were his only hope. He melted into the night, praying that the darkness would shield him from his pursuers. Section 5. The Inferno. News of Topan's escape spread through the city like wildfire. The boss, enraged and humiliated, vowed to find his son, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Topan was in hiding, moving from one safe house to another, relying on the few contacts he trusted. One night, a horrifying blaze lit up the sky. The news spread quickly. The boss's mansion was engulfed in flames. Topan watched in disbelief as the symbol of his former life burned, the flames consuming years of memories, both good and bad. The fire was ruled an accident, but a seed of doubt lingered in Topan's mind. Could his father have staged the fire to draw him out, or was there another player in this dangerous game? Section 6. Whispers of Edric. Rumors began to circulate about the fire. Some whispered that it was an inside job, a way for the boss to eliminate his rivals and solidify his power. Others pointed to a new player in the underworld, Edric, a ruthless gangster known for his fiery temper and ambition. Edric had been making a name for himself, muscling in on the boss's territory. He was also rumored to be infatuated with Elle, a fact that did not sit well with the boss. The fire, some speculated, was Edric's way of sending a message. Topan, hearing these whispers, couldn't shake off a growing suspicion. Could Edric be involved in the fire, and if so, what were his motives? Was Topan's escape merely a pawn in the larger game of power? He needed answers, but the truth, he knew, was a dangerous thing to uncover. Section 7. Between Loyalty and Morality. News of the fire reached Elle, throwing her into turmoil. The fire, the rumors about Edric, and Topan's disappearance added up to a terrifying puzzle. She had always harbored a soft spot for Topan, seeing a kindred spirit trapped in a world he didn't choose. Torn between loyalty to her father and concern for Topan, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She sought out Topan, using her connections to track him down. She found him in a rundown apartment, his face etched with exhaustion and worry. Their reunion was bittersweet. They shared a tense silence, the weight of their past and the uncertainty of the future hanging heavy in the air. Elle promised to help Topan, to uncover the truth about the fire and Edric's involvement. Their paths, once bound by duty and circumstance, were now intertwined by a shared purpose. They were both caught in the crossfire, fighting for their freedom and their lives. Section 8. The Price of Freedom. Days turned into weeks as Topan and Elle delved deeper into the mysteries surrounding the fire. They followed a trail of whispers and half-truths, piecing together the events that led to the inferno. Their investigation led them to the heart of Edric's operations, a world even more dangerous than the one Topan had left behind. They discovered that Edric had indeed orchestrated the fire, using it as a cover to steal valuable information from the boss. The information they learned was a ledger containing details of the boss's illegal dealings, enough to bring down his entire empire. Topan was faced with a moral dilemma. He could expose Edric, bringing his father's empire crashing down and potentially facing his wrath. Or he could remain silent, protecting himself and El, but allowing a dangerous criminal to go free. The price of freedom, he realized, was a heavy one. Section 9. Unanswered questions. The weight of the decision pressed down on Topan. He was caught between two worlds, each with its own set of rules and consequences. He knew that whatever choice he made would have lasting repercussions. The story of Topan's fight for freedom is a tale of loyalty, betrayal, and the struggle for redemption. It is a story that leaves us with more questions than answers. Will Topan choose to expose the truth and risk his own safety? Or will he remain silent, forever haunted by the knowledge of his father's crimes? The answers, like the truth itself, remain elusive, leaving the reader to ponder the complexities of morality and the price of freedom in a world where the lines between right and wrong are blurred.